The reality-shearing weapons fired with the sound of universe itself screaming. Space around the eternal dawn twisted into impossible shapes as the hegemony's most devastating technology tried to erase the human ship from existence. The weapons literally tore holes in space-time, creating voids where physics stopped working and matter simply ceased to be. For a moment, the entire battle zone looked like a broken mirror, with fragments of normal space floating next to patches of absolute nothingness. The energy release was so intense that it briefly disrupted communications across 3 star systems. When the distortion cleared, the eternal dawn floated exactly where it had been, completely unharmed. War Master Thacklon stared at his instruments in complete disbelief. Reality-shearing weapons were the ultimate military technology, capable of destroying entire fleets by simply removing them from existence. Nothing should be able to survive direct exposure to space-time collapse. "Dimensional shields holding steady," reported Science Officer Hae-Young Kim, as if the ship had just weathered a minor asteroid shower, instead of an attack that could have destroyed a small moon. "Their weapons operate in only 3 dimensions. Our defenses work in 17. Captain Jin Woo Nam opened communications to the enemy fleet one final time. His image appeared on screens throughout the hegemony forces, and his words were broadcast live to news networks across the galaxy. "War Master Thacklon, you have now seen what humanity calls a defensive demonstration. Your fleets have fired everything they have at one human ship, and that ship remains undamaged. Half your vessels are disabled but safe. Your crews are protected and unharmed. Are you ready to discuss reasonable terms, or shall we move to offensive demonstrations?" The alien commander's voice carried defeat even as he tried to maintain his threatening tone. What do you want?" "Simple terms," Captain Nam replied. "Withdraw your fleets from all disputed territories. Recognize humanity's right to exist and expand peacefully. Establish formal diplomatic relations based on mutual respect rather than threats. In return, we will share some of our defensive technologies to help protect your worlds from genuine threats." It was a generous offer, more generous than any defeated enemy had a right to expect. But humanity's goal had never been conquest or revenge. They wanted security, respect, and the right to exist without constantly looking over their shoulders for the next threat. Thacklon looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. Every alien there understood what they had witnessed. A single human ship had faced the combined military might of 4 empires and made it look effortless. More importantly, they had done so without killing anyone, proving that their power came with wisdom and restraint. "I accept your terms," the War Master said finally, "but I must ask, how long has humanity possessed such technology?" Captain Nam smiled. "We've been developing it for 50 years, ever since we realized that the galaxy might not always be friendly to newcomers. The question is not how long we've had it, but why we kept it secret." Ambassador So-Min Park's voice came through the communication system as her shuttle approached the battle zone. "We kept it secret because we hoped we would never need to use it. Humanity prefers to solve problems through diplomacy and cooperation. But when threatened with extinction, we are prepared to defend ourselves." Her shuttle docked with the eternal dawn through a dimensional gate that simply opened in empty space. Another casual demonstration of impossible technology. Within minutes, she was aboard the hegemony flagship, beginning formal negotiations for what would become known as the Kepler Accords. The peace talks were surprisingly brief. When one side possesses overwhelming technological superiority, but chooses to negotiate rather than conquer, the other side tends to be very reasonable. Within hours, agreements were signed, establishing new territorial boundaries, mutual non-aggression pacts, and the framework for ongoing diplomatic relations. Intelligence Officer Bo Ram Lim monitored communications from across the galaxy as news of the engagement spread. "Captain, we're receiving formal requests for diplomatic contact from 47 different species. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to offer Earth a permanent seat on the High Command. And sir, the Tri-Wing Republic is asking if we would be interested in a mutual defense treaty." "Interesting how quickly opinions can change," observed Commander Yuna Shin. Captain Nam nodded. "Fear fades but respect lasts. That's why we chose to disable rather than destroy, to protect rather than punish. The galaxy needed to see that humanity's power comes with humanity's values." As the Eternal Dawn prepared to fold back into its compact diplomatic configuration, Captain Nam reflected on the mission's success. They had accomplished everything they set out to do. The hegemony threat was neutralized, humanity's colonies were safe, and the galaxy now understood that Earth was not a species to be underestimated or threatened. Chief Engineer Minho Zhang initiated the dimensional compression sequence, and the massive warship began to fold itself back into the modest vessel that had arrived 3 days earlier. The process was just as impossible to watch as the original unfolding, as kilometers of starship somehow fit back into an 800-meter hull. Medical Officer Diane Cho filed her final report on the engagement. 0 human casualties, 0 enemy casualties. All disabled hegemony vessels have been restored to partial functionality and are being escorted home by their own forces. Mission parameters exceeded in all categories. War Master Thakkalon watched from his flagship as the human ship completed its transformation back into an innocent-looking diplomatic vessel. The demonstration was over, but its message would echo through galactic politics for generations. Humanity had proven that they possessed the power to rewrite the fundamental rules of warfare, but they had chosen to use that power with mercy and restraint. A question. Captain Nam, Thakkalon said over the communication channel, if humanity has possessed such capabilities for 50 years, why reveal them now? Why not continue to let the galaxy underestimate you? Captain Nam considered the question carefully before answering. Because hiding our strength was making the galaxy more dangerous, not safer. When species believe humanity is weak, they feel free to threaten us. When they understand our true capabilities, they choose cooperation instead of conflict. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to show that you can win it without firing a shot. As the Eternal Dawn prepared to depart for Earth, communications channels filled with messages from across the galaxy. Species that had ignored humanity for decades suddenly wanted to establish trade agreements, defense treaties, and cultural exchanges. The transformation was remarkable. In a single day, humanity had gone from being a minor spacefaring species to one of the most respected powers in the galaxy. Admiral Hae-Jin Lee received the mission report from her office on Earth, where she had been watching the engagement through secure military channels. The demonstration had been perfect. Overwhelming technological superiority combined with absolute restraint, proving that humanity could be trusted with power because they used it wisely. General Won-Sik Choi reviewed the strategic implications of the day's events. 50 years of preparation and it's finally over. No more hiding. No more pretending to be weaker than we are. The galaxy knows what humanity is capable of now. And more importantly, Admiral Lee added, they know what we choose to do with that capability. We could have conquered half the galaxy today, but instead we chose to make peace. The Eternal Dawn entered hyperspace for its journey home, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again wonder why humanity sent a single ship to face impossible odds. They had learned that sometimes one ship was not just enough. Sometimes one ship was exactly what the situation required. On Earth, children who had gone to sleep worried about alien invasions woke up to news that humanity was now considered one of the galaxy's great powers. The colonies that had been threatened with destruction were now under the protection of technology that made invasion impossible. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their choice to use both in service of peace rather than conquest. The guns had fired, the message had been delivered, and the future was now full of possibilities that had not existed 24 hours earlier. The galaxy had wondered why humanity sent a single ship. Now they understood that it was because one ship was all humanity needed to change everything. The first salvo from humanity's guns defied every law of physics that the galaxy thought it understood. Weapons Officer Sung Min had trained his entire career for this moment, and his fingers moved across the control systems with practiced precision. Firing dimensional displacement batteries, he announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to unleash. The weapons that emerged from the Eternal Dawn did not travel through space in any conventional sense. Instead, they seemed to edit reality itself. Beams of light that existed in 17 different dimensional layers simultaneously reached out toward the hegemony fleet, not to destroy, but to disable with surgical precision. Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-bae watched her displays as the first volley found its targets. 200 enemy vessels disabled, sir. All crews safe and accounted for. Their ships are powerless but intact. On his flagship, War Master Thaklon stared in horror as 200 of his finest warships simply stopped working. No explosions, no debris, no signs of damage. One moment they were fully operational war machines, the next they were floating metal shells with confused crews, wondering what had happened to their power systems. How? He demanded from his science officer. How can weapons disable our ships without destroying them? The crystalline being's body flickered rapidly, showing extreme agitation. The human weapons appear to operate by temporarily removing critical ship systems from normal space-time. Engines, weapons, life support all remain physically intact but exist in a dimensional pocket where they cannot function. It is theoretically impossible. Captain Jin Woo Nam watched the enemy fleet's response with interest. Instead of retreating or surrendering, the hegemony forces were trying to close the distance, hoping that overwhelming numbers could somehow overcome impossible technology. They're persistent, observed Commander Yuna Shin. I'll give them that. Cultural pride, Captain Nam replied. The hegemony has never lost a battle. They can't accept that one human ship could be superior to their entire fleet. Gunnery Chief Seok Jin Yu called from the Weapons Control Center. Captain, we're tracking approximately 800 enemy ships moving to attack positions. They seem to believe that getting closer will help them somehow. Show them why that's a mistake, Captain Nam ordered. The second volley was even more impressive than the first. Humanity's weapons reached across space to touch 400 enemy vessels simultaneously. This time, the watching galaxy could see exactly what happened. Ship after ship simply went dark as their vital systems were removed from reality. In some cases, the weapons were so precise that they disabled half a ship, while leaving the other half fully functional. Medical Officer Dayun Cho monitored the humanitarian protocols from her station in the ship's medical bay. All enemy crew members are registering as safe, Captain. Our weapons are specifically designed to avoid harming organic life while disabling mechanical systems. This was perhaps the most shocking aspect of humanity's demonstration. A species advanced enough to develop impossible weapons had chosen to use them in the most merciful way possible. Every disabled ship found itself surrounded by emergency life support pods that appeared from nowhere, ensuring that no alien would die even if their ship's systems failed completely. War Master Thaklon found himself in the impossible position of watching his grand fleet being systematically disabled by an enemy that refused to kill anyone. The psychological impact was devastating. How do you fight an enemy that can defeat you while simultaneously protecting your life? All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel, he ordered desperately. Every weapon maximum power. If we cannot destroy it with precision, we will overwhelm it with raw force. The remaining active ships, still over 2,000 strong, focused their combined firepower on the eternal dawn. The energy release was so intense that it briefly created a miniature star in the empty space around the human ship. Plasma hot enough to vaporize mountains, exotic matter weapons that could unravel atomic bonds, and reality distortion fields that could erase matter from existence, all focused on a single target. The attack lasted for 30 seconds. When it ended, the eternal dawn remained exactly where it had been, its shields having absorbed, redirected, or simply ignored the assault. Lieutenant Commander Dong-Hyun Park looked up from his communications console. Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 12 different enemy ship commanders. They want to discuss terms for withdrawing from the battle. Tell them to contact their War Master, Captain Nam replied. We're still in formal negotiations, but Thaklon was not ready to admit defeat. His pride, his reputation, and his empire's entire military doctrine were all based on the idea that superior numbers and firepower could overcome any opposition. To accept that one ship could defeat his fleet would be to accept that everything he believed was wrong. Deploy the bioships, he ordered. Release the collective swarm fleet. From 3 massive carrier vessels emerged something that looked like a living nightmare. Thousands of small organic ships poured into space like insects from a disturbed nest. Each bioship was individually weak, but together they formed a swarm that could overwhelm most defenses through sheer numbers. Science Officer Hae Young Kim watched the swarm approach with professional interest. Fascinating. They're using biological vessels with distributed intelligence. Each ship is essentially a single cell in a larger organism. Can our weapons handle them? Captain Nam asked. Better than they can handle our weapons, replied Weapons Officer O. Dimensional displacement works even better on organic targets. We can disable the entire swarm in a single shot. Do it. The third volley from humanity's guns was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of individual beams targeting specific ships, the Eternal Dawn fired what appeared to be a wave of distorted space that washed over the entire bioship swarm. Every organic vessel simply stopped moving, their biological systems temporarily placed in dimensional storage where they could survive but not function. In less than 5 minutes, the hegemony's swarm attack had been reduced to thousands of floating, harmless bioships drifting in space like sleeping whales. War Master Thaklon stood on his bridge, watching his tactical displays show the impossible. Nearly half his fleet was disabled, floating helplessly in space but with crews that were completely safe. The enemy had demonstrated technology so advanced that it might as well have been magic, yet they had used it with such restraint that not a single alien life had been lost. Communications Officer Jiho Song intercepted transmissions from across the galaxy. Captain, we're receiving real-time commentary from over 300 news networks. The entire galaxy is watching this engagement. Several species are requesting immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. And the Galactic Council? Captain Nam asked. Emergency session in progress. They want to discuss humanity's immediate admission to the High Command Council. Captain Nam nodded. The demonstration was having exactly the effect humanity had intended. Fear was useful, but respect was better. By showing both overwhelming power and absolute restraint, humans were proving that they could be trusted with advanced technology. But the battle was not over yet. War Master Thaklon still had over 1,500 active ships, and his pride was not ready to surrender to a species he had considered inferior. Prepare the reality-shearing weapons, Thaklon ordered. If conventional firepower cannot damage their ship, we will use weapons that can tear apart space itself. On the Eternal Dawn, Captain Nam watched as the enemy fleet prepared what appeared to be their most devastating weapons. They're going to try to destroy local space-time, he observed. Interesting approach. Should we stop them? Commander Shin asked. No, let them see why that won't work either. Then maybe they'll be ready to discuss reasonable terms. The galaxy watched as the hegemony prepared to use weapons that could literally tear holes in reality. They were about to learn that humanity had been preparing for this possibility for decades. 29 minutes remained on the hegemony ultimatum when Science Officer Hae-young Kim began what appeared to be standard defensive procedures. Her fingers moved across control panels that looked ordinary to anyone watching, but every command she entered activated systems that should not have existed. Beginning dimensional matrix initialization, she announced calmly, as if she was starting up a coffee machine instead of technology that violated several laws of physics. Captain Jin-Woo Nam watched the main display as enemy ships maintained their threatening positions. 3,000 vessels arranged in perfect attack formation, all waiting for the hour to pass so they could demonstrate their power. They had no idea that they were about to witness something impossible. Matrix stable, reported Chief Engineer Minho Jang from the engine room. All fold space generators showing green. Dimensional anchors locked. We're ready to proceed, Captain. Do it, Captain Nam ordered. What happened next would be studied by alien scientists for centuries, though none of them would ever fully understand how humanity had achieved it. The Eternal Dawn began to change, but not in any way that made sense according to known physics. The ship did not grow larger. Instead, it unfolded. Sections that could not possibly have fit inside the original 800-meter hull began emerging from what appeared to be empty space. The process looked like watching someone pull an impossibly large object out of a small box, except the box was space itself and the object was a warship that kept getting bigger. On the bridge of the Hegemony flagship, War Master Thaklon stared at his tactical displays in confusion. His sensors showed the human ship expanding, but that was impossible. Matter could not simply appear from nowhere. Space itself had rules that could not be broken. What am I looking at? He demanded from his science officer. A crystalline being whose species prided itself on understanding the universe's fundamental laws. I do not know, War Master, the alien replied, its crystal body flickering with patterns that indicated deep confusion. Our sensors detect additional mass appearing, but there is no energy signature to explain it. It is as if the ship is unpacking itself from dimensions that do not exist. The Eternal Dawn continued its impossible transformation, The modest diplomatic vessel became a kilometer-long cruiser, then a 2-kilometer battleship, then something that had no classification in any alien database. Gun ports opened along its hull, not the small defensive weapons originally visible, but massive turrets that emerged from folded space like flowers blooming in fast motion. Lieutenant Commander Dong-hyun Park monitored communications from across the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving emergency transmissions from over 50 species. Everyone wants to know what we're doing and how we're doing it." "Let them wonder," Captain Nam replied. "The important thing is that they're watching." The transformation continued for another 10 minutes. By the time it finished, the Eternal Dawn had become something that hurt to look at directly. Its dimensions seemed to shift depending on the viewing angle, as if different parts of the ship existed in separate layers of reality. The final length appeared to be roughly 5 kilometers, but sensor readings suggested it might be longer, shorter, or somehow both at the same time. Commander Yu Na Shin checked her tactical systems and smiled. "All weapon systems online. Dimensional shields at full power. Sir, I think we're ready to make our point." War Master Thaklan had stopped demanding explanations from his science officers and started issuing orders to his fleet. "All ships, maximum alert status. Target the human vessel with everything we have. I do not care if it is 5 kilometers or 50. No single ship can stand against 3,000. But doubt crept into his voice. This was not how the demonstration was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to beg, surrender, and accept their fate. Instead, they had revealed technology that made the hegemony's greatest achievements look primitive. Captain Nam opened communications to the entire enemy fleet. When he spoke, his image appeared on screens throughout thousands of alien ships. "War Master Thaklan, you wanted to see what humanity sends to a negotiation. This is our diplomatic vessel. These are the tools we use to discuss terms with those who threaten our people." The alien commander's response came immediately. "Impossible technology will not save you, human. You still face 3,000 ships. Even if your vessel is larger than it appeared, you are still vastly outnumbered." "Numbers can be deceiving," Captain Nam replied. "You're not facing one ship, War Master. You're facing the full technological capability of humanity deployed through dimensional engineering. We've had 50 years to prepare for this moment. 50 years to develop weapons and defenses that work in ways your science cannot understand." Weapons Officer Sungmin Oh looked up from his console with anticipation written across his face. "Captain, all gun batteries are charged and ready. Dimensional targeting systems have locked onto the entire enemy fleet. Shall I begin the demonstration?" "Not yet," Captain Nam said. "Give them one more chance to withdraw peacefully." He opened the communication channel again. "War Master Thaklan, you have one final opportunity to end this without bloodshed. Order your fleets to withdraw from this system and respect humanity's territorial claims. Continue to threaten us and you will discover why we prefer peaceful solutions to the alternatives." The alien commander's laugh echoed across every frequency. "You think to intimidate us with tricks and illusions? Very well, human. Let us see how your impossible ship handles impossible odds." Thaklan's orders went out to his entire fleet. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the human vessel. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the hegemony." 3,000 ships fired at once. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids discharged their fury. Quantum torpedoes that could crack moons streaked through space. Energy beams that could tear apart the fabric of reality itself converged on the Eternal Dawn. The light show was visible from the other side of the solar system. Enough firepower to destroy a planet focused on a single target, creating an explosion that registered on sensors across dozens of star systems. When the light faded, the Eternal Dawn floated exactly where it had been, completely unharmed. "Impossible," whispered Thaklan. Captain Nam's voice came through the communication system one final time before humanity's guns fired for the first time in 50 years. "War Master, you wanted to see our negotiating tools. Allow us to demonstrate their effectiveness." Tactical Officer Yunji Bei began the sequence that would change galactic history forever. "All weapons prepare to fire. Dimensional targeting locked. Remember, disable only, we're not here to commit murder." The galaxy held its breath as the transformed human ship prepared to show what it was truly capable of. In the next few minutes, every species in known space would learn why humanity had spent 50 years pretending to be weak. The Eternal Dawn's guns began to glow within light that seemed to come from somewhere outside normal space. War Master Thaklan realized far too late that he had made a terrible mistake. 3 weeks passed like a held breath across the galaxy. News networks from 100 different worlds carried the same story. Humanity's single ship would soon face the assembled might of the hegemony. Most coverage treated it as a curiosity, like watching someone challenge a mountain to a fight. The Eternal Dawn dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule at the coordinates for Kepler 442. The neutral system contained nothing but empty space, a few asteroids and a distant red dwarf star that barely provided enough light to see by. It was the perfect place for a battle that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Captain Jinwoo Nam stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at what should have been an empty view. Instead, space blazed with the lights of 3,000 enemy vessels arranged in perfect military formation. The hegemony had not come to negotiate. They had come to make an example. "Impressive sight," commented Commander Yuna Shin from her position at the tactical station. She sounded calm, almost bored, as if seeing the largest fleet assembly in galactic history was an everyday occurrence. "They really pulled out all the stops." "Count?" Captain Nam asked. 3,147 ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Dong-hyun Park from the communications station. 4 different classes of dreadnoughts, 18 carrier groups, and enough smaller vessels to invade a solar system. "Oh, and they're all pointing their weapons at us." Captain Nam nodded. The hegemony wanted to show overwhelming force. They wanted any watching species to see what happened when you defied their will. Unfortunately for them, they had no idea what they were really facing. "Chief Engineer Min-ho Jang, status report," the captain called toward the back of the bridge. "All systems green, sir," came the reply from a man who looked far too young to be running the engines of a starship. "The dimensional matrices are stable, and all fold space generators are ready for deployment. Just give the word." "Not yet," Captain Nam said quietly. "Let's see what they want to say first." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the interior of a hegemony command ship. War Master Thaklan filled most of the screen, his stone-gray skin looking even more intimidating under the harsh military lighting. Behind him, the bridge bustled with alien crew members preparing for battle. "Human vessel," Thaklan began, his voice carrying the tone of someone addressing an insect. "You have arrived as promised. I admit I am surprised. Most species would have fled rather than face certain destruction." Captain Nam stepped forward so the enemy could see him clearly. "War Master Thaklan, we came to negotiate as agreed. Are you prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence?" The alien's laugh sounded like boulders crashing together. "Negotiate? Human, you face the combined fleets of 4 empires. Your single ship will be destroyed in minutes. Surrender your colonies now and perhaps we will make your deaths quick." "I appreciate the offer," Captain Nam replied politely, "but I think you misunderstand our position. We're not here to surrender. We're here to show you why humanity prefers peaceful solutions." Several alien officers on Thaklan's bridge made sounds that the translation system converted as laughter. One of them, a creature that looked like a walking plant, leaned forward to address the screen directly. "You have courage, I will grant that. But courage means nothing against overwhelming firepower. You cannot possibly believe that one ship can stand against our fleet." Science Officer Hae Young Kim looked up from her console with a slight smile. "Actually, sir, according to our calculations, one ship should be more than sufficient." Thaklan's red eyes blazed brighter. "Enough of this foolishness. Human captain, you have exactly 1 hour to surrender your colonies and submit to hegemony authority. After that, we will demonstrate the price of defying us." The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dawn in relative quiet. Outside, the massive enemy fleet held position, weapons charged and ready. Their formation was perfect, overlapping fields of fire, redundant command structures, and enough firepower to crack planets. "They're really quite good at this," observed Weapons Officer Sungmin. "Oh," studying the tactical displays. "Classic overwhelming force doctrine. No fancy tricks, just raw power applied efficiently." "It's worked for them for centuries," Captain Nam agreed. "Most species see a fleet like that and surrender immediately. It's actually quite practical." "Too bad for them that we're not most species," Commander Shin added. Lieutenant Commander Park was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "Sir, we're getting feeds from over 200 news networks. Everyone's watching. The Galactic Council has observers standing by and even neutral species are paying attention. Good, Captain Nam said. The more witnesses, the better. When this is over, we want everyone to understand the message. Chief Engineer Zhang called from the engine room through the internal communication system. Captain, I'm showing some interesting energy readings from the enemy fleet. They're powering up some seriously heavy weapons. Whatever they're planning to hit us with, it's going to be spectacular. Are our systems ready? The captain asked. More than ready, sir. We've been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Every calculation has been checked and double-checked. The dimensional fold generators have been tested under every possible condition. We could take on 10 times this many ships if we had to. Captain Nam walked over to the main tactical display, which showed the Eternal Dawn as a small blue dot surrounded by thousands of red enemy contacts. To any normal observer, it looked like the most hopeless situation in military history. But Captain Nam was not a normal observer. He knew what his ship really was. He knew what humanity had built in secret while the galaxy watched and dismissed them as a minor species. Most importantly, he knew that the next hour would change everything. Open a channel to all hegemony vessels, he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Park nodded. Channel open, sir. You're broadcasting to their entire fleet. Captain Nam spoke clearly and calmly, his words carrying to thousands of alien warriors who expected him to beg for mercy. This is Captain Jinwoo Nam of the Earth vessel Eternal Dawn. You came here expecting to destroy one ship and terrorize a species into submission. You're about to learn why that was a mistake. Humanity offers you one final chance. Withdraw your fleets, respect our territorial boundaries, and we can all go home peacefully. The response came immediately from multiple ships. Laughter, insults, and promises of swift destruction filled the communications channels. The aliens could not believe that one ship was still trying to bargain with them. Captain Nam nodded to his crew. Well, we tried. Mr. Zhang, prepare for dimensional deployment. Miss Kim, begin the unfolding sequence. Everyone else, hold on to something. This is going to be interesting. The Eternal Dawn hung motionless in space, looking exactly like what it appeared to be. One small ship facing impossible odds. In 30 minutes, the galaxy would learn that appearances could be very deceiving. The massive space station called New Geneva floated silently in the dark void between star systems. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from 12 different alien species gathered around a circular table that could have held a small city. The air buzzed with tension as translators worked overtime to convert angry words between dozens of languages. Commander Tae-ho Kim stood near the back wall, watching the chaos unfold before him. His dark uniform bore the simple Earth insignia, a blue and green circle that looked tiny compared to the elaborate symbols worn by the alien delegates. He kept his face calm, but inside his stomach twisted with worry. This meeting would decide if humanity lived or died. At the center of the argument sat the hegemony delegation. 4 different alien species had joined together to form this military alliance, and they were not happy. Their leader, War Master Thaklon, stood nearly 3 meters tall with gray skin like stone and eyes that glowed red in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. The human colonies of Nuterra, Harmony, and Prosperity must surrender immediately, Thaklon declared, slamming a massive fist on the table. These worlds belong to hegemony space by ancient right. We give Earth 72 hours to remove all human presence, or we will remove it ourselves. Ambassador Soman Park rose gracefully from her seat. She looked small next to the alien giants, but her voice carried clearly through the chamber. The colonies you mention have been home to human families for over 50 years. Children have been born there who know no other world. We cannot simply abandon them. A creature that looked like a walking crystal formation clicked its limbs together, creating sounds like breaking glass. The translator converted its words. The crystalline syndicate supports the hegemony claim. Humans expand too quickly. Your species takes too much space. Another alien delegate, this one covered in what looked like living fur that moved on its own, added its support. The collective agrees. Human growth threatens the balance. Surrender the colonies or face consequences. Tae-ho watched as more species joined the chorus against humanity. The Galactic Council had been designed to prevent wars, but it seemed like war was exactly what everyone wanted. Everyone except the humans, anyway. Ambassador Park remained standing, her hands folded calmly in front of her. We understand your concerns. However, Earth has a different proposal. We request a formal negotiation period. Send your fleets to the neutral zone at Kepler 442. We will send a representative to discuss terms. War Master Thaklon's laugh sounded like rocks tumbling down a mountain. You think to bargain with us? The hegemony commands 10,000 warships. The Syndicate controls reality itself through crystal technology. The Collective can birth 1 million bioships in a single day. What does humanity offer in return? 1 ship, Ambassador Park said simply. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant hum of the station's life support systems seemed to pause. Alien delegates looked at each other with confusion written across their strange faces. 1 ship? Repeated a delegate from the Tri-Wing Republic, its 3 heads speaking in unison. You joke, surely. 1 human vessel against the combined might of the hegemony? Ambassador Park shook her head. No joke. 1 ship carrying our negotiating team. If you wish to discuss terms, meet us at Kepler 442 in 3 weeks. If you prefer war, then you will have it. But you will have it knowing that we offered another way. Thaklon stood to his full imposing height. Very well. 3 weeks. But know this, human. When your single ship arrives, it will face 3,000 hegemony vessels. After we destroy it, we will take your colonies anyway. Perhaps this demonstration will teach your species humility. The session ended with alien delegates filing out, many of them making sounds that the translators indicated were laughter. Tejo waited until the chamber emptied before approaching Ambassador Park. Ma'am, respectfully, are we insane? He asked quietly. 1 ship against 3,000? The entire human fleet couldn't handle those odds. Ambassador Park smiled, and for the first time since the session began, she looked genuinely happy. Commander Kim, you're thinking like everyone else in this room. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your enemies underestimate you. Back on Earth, Admiral Hai Jin Lee sat in a secure conference room deep beneath the Global Defense Headquarters. Holographic displays showed star charts, fleet positions, and classified technical readouts that would have made alien intelligence services very interested. Across from her sat General Wansik Choi, a man whose calm expression hid decades of military experience. The hegemony took the bait, Admiral Lee reported, reviewing the transmission from New Geneva. 3 weeks to reach Kepler 442. Thaklon is assembling everything he has. They want to make an example of us. General Choi nodded slowly. And the ship? Captain Jinwoo-nam has been briefed. His crew is ready. Project Pandora is finally going to see action. 50 years of development, the general mused. 50 years of pretending to be weaker than we are. Do you think it was worth it? Admiral Lee looked at the holographic display showing the single ship that would soon depart for Kepler 442. To most observers, it looked like a standard diplomatic vessel, sleek, peaceful, and completely unremarkable. The technical specifications listed it as 800 meters long with minimal armament and a crew of 200. Of course, those specifications were lies. General, when this is over, the galaxy will never underestimate humanity again. Whether that's worth 50 years of deception, I guess we'll find out. 3 days later, the ship that would officially be known as the Eternal Dawn began its journey toward Kepler 442. As it disappeared into hyperspace, nobody on Earth knew if they would ever see it return. But they all knew that everything would change when its guns finally fired. The galaxy wondered why humanity would send a single ship to face impossible odds. Soon they would understand that sometimes 1 ship was all humanity needed. Sometimes 1 ship was more than enough.